guys, and welcome back to the Cruel Corner. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty corner for all things Formula E. So, the Rome E-Prix weekend has finally come to a close, with me about to discuss round number 2. If you haven't seen round number 1, I'll pop it up there in the corner, or that corner, wherever way it is, for you to watch that before you sink your teeth into this episode. Yeah, this weekend has been a dramatic weekend, hasn't it? We've had the big accident in round number 1 involving Sam Bird that took the headlines, and then in this race itself we had a collision between two title protagonists. And that is the one stealing the headlines now, isn't it? Because it is very much advantage Jake Dennis for the overall title. So if you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers out a maximum of 10 points based on their race weekend's performance, and I go all the way down to 0 if they have a particularly bad one. Take a look out for bonus points though. They're sometimes enough for some drivers that do something extra special during a race, and I do award minus points to those drivers that do something extra special, but for all the wrong reasons. Let's take a look at the current Cruel Corner standings then going into this episode. It's on the screen now for you to take a look at. See what points I awarded drivers yesterday, and not only that, but take a look and see where your favourite driver is and see where they're going to finish in the Cruel Corner standings, because it's not all over yet. This is still very tight at the top. There's a mid-pack that's absolutely mental as well. Drivers will be looking, I'm sure, after watching this episode, to go up or go down. Yeah, if only they were watching, eh? If only they were watching. But yeah, it is very, very close run thing, this. Not just for the overall title, but the Cruel Corner title as well. And see who will be crowned the first ever Cruel Corner champion. Oh, it's exciting stuff, isn't it? So, of course, we're going to kick things off with the race winner, Jake Dennis in the Andretti. Wow, oh wow. Mitch Evans had an impeccable performance yesterday. He had a brilliant race in that Jaguar. Picked up every point possible. Here we are now discussing Jake Dennis, which not only picked up every point possible, but also decided, no, I'm going to do one better than you, Mitch. I am going to lead every single lap as well during the race, which is ridiculous. The first time in the Gen 3 era that has happened, so he has had an official Grand Slam now. Pole position, fastest lap, leading every lap and winning the race. Unbelievable stuff by Jake. I mean, in a season that has been so much fraught about let's not lead the race, of course there was had a slight advantage with the fact it was a lesser race, it was a shorter lapped race, so they didn't have to worry about the energy as much. Still being in the slipstream, I would have thought would have given you an advantage, but there was one incident that happened behind him. He was almost very much caught up in it as well, that he would have felt like all his Christmases came at once, and from there he was able to just to relax as well. Like, he wasn't under as much pressure then once his two main title rivals behind him were out of the race effectively. Yeah, we'll cover that when we actually get to those drivers involved, but yeah, for Jake Dennis, he must have been looking in his mirror laughing when he saw that, because it would have been a brief oh shit moment as he saw that car hurtling towards him, but then when he avoided it, he'd have been thinking, wow, not only is this race comfortably mine now, but this title could be comfortably mine. He was 24 points advantage now in the overall standings, ahead of Nick Cassidy. There's 58 points available in the London E-Prix weekend, so very much not over yet with 24 points advantage. But it's going to take a mammoth effort for Nick Cassidy to overhaul that points deficit. He's got to win and Jake Dennis score none, and then he's got to have another impeccable race the race after to make sure he wins. It's a lot on the line now. I mean, it's still more than possible. Like I said, with 58 points still available, of course you get 25 for a win, 3 for a pole and 1 for fastest lap. It's a double header, double that up, you get the 58. Quick maths there, well done Josh. Thanks for telling everyone. It's like David Croft explaining what DRS does every fucking weekend in Formula 1. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent already. So for Jake Dennis this weekend, it's going to be nothing short of 12 points. 12 points to Jake Dennis. I gave Mitch Evans 11 points yesterday. Well, I'm afraid that it's got to be, hasn't it? It's got to be an extra point to Jake Dennis for leading every lap and becoming the first ever driver in Formula E in the Gen 3 era to do what is effectively a Grand Slam. It was absolutely perfect for him this weekend. Firmly titled holding now in his place. He's got a grasp on that trophy. Can he keep it? I hope so. I hope he does. But yeah, Jake Dennis, 12 points on the Cruel Corner. Finishing in second place and securing Nissan's first ever podium in Formula E. It is Norman Nato in the Nissan. Unbelievable drive from him this weekend. He was the only one that was really able to put Jake Dennis under pressure after the two title antagonists took each other out. But then Norman decided he was going to go for a little half move, a little bit of a look. Caught the back of Jake Dennis, broke his front wing. He was lucky not to be black and orange flagged to come into pit for that wing because it was flailing about for a couple of laps. Then that bit fell off and then the structure of it eventually just went like wonky. It was rubbing on the floor. It was really, really, really surprising that he wasn't brought in. I'm glad he wasn't, but it was surprising that he wasn't brought in. So he drove a great race with a damaged wing, it must be said, but he'd have put Jake Dennis under a lot more pressure for a lot longer had he not had that front wing damage. I think it'd have always been virtually impossible to overtake Jake because Jake knew what he needed to do that weekend. But Norman just making that little lazy look up the inside, damaging that wing. And then from there, he just had to defend from the cars behind, which he did a fantastic job of doing, it must be said. But yeah, without that wing damage, it would have been interesting to see how long he would have harried Jake for. But after that damage, he was very much looking behind him as opposed to looking forward. Everything just fell into place this weekend for Jake Dennis ahead, didn't it? But for Norman Nato, I am thrilled that he has secured a podium. Nissan's first podium in Formula E, so there's been a lot of firsts in this race, it must be said. And yeah, Norman Nato in the Nissan is going to get 9 points. 9 points on the cruel corner to him, and I am knocking that point off for that silly little look up the inside that damaged that nose, because without that I think he would have still finished second anyway, but he'd have had a more comfortable journey finishing in second place. I said this in yesterday's race, didn't I? Nissan seem to struggle at the circuits where they have to be more energy efficient. This race, Norman Nato, less laps, the same circuit that he struggled at yesterday, didn't do half as badly here today. Not having to lift and coast as much, was able to use more of the power. He delivered a great drive and finished second. So yeah, 9-2, Norman Nato in the Nissan. Securing third place in the Jaguar, it is Sam Bird. Sam Bird, here he is. Disqualified on the cruel corner anyway. What could be said for this race? Well, I'm glad that the Jaguar team managed to get his car out. And I'm pleased in some respects that Bird managed to secure a podium. But was there a little bit of gamesmanship from Sam Bird here? Because he really looked like he could have got round Norman, but he didn't. It makes me think now he's thinking, right, I've been dropped by Jaguar here. Do I really want to see Mitch win the title? I don't really want to be overtaking Norman and then going for Dennis. I'm quite happy to see Jake Dennis win. Not too sure, just pondered in my mind there. You know, he said after the race that, yeah, there were no risks, it wasn't worth the risk. Well, it technically was from a Jaguar standpoint that you got past Norman and then tried to go for Jake Dennis. It was worth the risk. You know, you had nothing to lose yourself, personally speaking. Picking up a third place, yeah, okay, fair enough. But I think he left a little bit of pace on the table there so that Jake Dennis could score the points that he did. That's me being a conspiracy theorist, but the way he was talking after the race, I'm not too sure. Anyway, Sam Bird disqualified on the cruel corner anyway. He will remain that way, but I'll just plant that little seed in your head. Finishing in fourth place, it is Edoardo Mortara in the Maserati. Great to see that these two guys that had the heavy hit yesterday doing well, securing third and fourth place finishes. Mortara having a much better race this race compared to the previous God knows how many races, because he has been doing absolutely terrible up until this point. But finally 12 points on the board for himself, and Maserati helps them in their title cause absolutely. It's about time he did a good result. No, Edoardo Mortara is the same fate as Sam Bird, disqualified on the cruel corner anyway, will remain that way, but good to see him up here and securing a good haul of points. Finishing in fifth place, it is Sebastian Buemi in the Envision car, picking up 10 points for the team there. That's a great effort by him. Again, nice to see a car that was stuck in the accident yesterday finishing in a strong position today. It was good to see Buemi up here. It was looking like he had this pace yesterday's race, but today finally came good, so nice to see. I've awarded Sebastian Buemi 7.5 for this race. And I think that's a fair score. It's a solid score there. And I think he more than deserves that. He was on the back of the cars towards the end there, looking to make progress, but just couldn't get around them. It's a tight and twisty circuit, and obviously with less energy efficiency needing to be consumed and used and having to back off as much. If you got that percentage above the cars around you, it's more difficult to use it, because obviously if it was more percentage and power restraints because of the laps, those cars that were running out of power would have lifted off a lot sooner. You'd have been able to breeze past, but it wasn't like that. So yeah, Buemi, 7.5 this weekend. A solid job picking up some solid points there for Envision. And yeah, that's all that can really be said. Then in 6th place we come to the much reformed Maxi Gunter, and it's not a podium, but it's still a top 6 finish. Still a good haul of points there for himself and for Maserati, especially when Eduardo Mortara is picking up 12 as well. He's picking up 8. That's a good points all over the weekend overall for the Maserati squad. Much improved compared to the start of the season. Maxi Gunter has done fantastically well so in the latter half of the season. Really deserves another chance at that seat and deserves another go in Formula E. We'll see what happens as the season progresses and as the off-season occurs, of course. But for Maxi Gunter, he's getting the same score as Sebastian Buemi. It's a solid 7.5 to him. A great run, a great charge, a good haul of points. Nothing overly special, but nice to see him pick up the points once again. 7.5 to Maxi Gunter. Then we come to Pascal Wehrlein doing the best in the world now, just to recreate what Nico Hülkenberg used to do in Formula 1, which was just finish P7 every race. But unfortunately that wasn't the best of the rest category in Formula E like it was in Formula 1 for Nico Hülkenberg. Wehrlein, what's happened to him this season, I really don't know. It's such a shame to see him down here once again. The title is over now, he's got 70 odd points gap. It's not possible mathematically, realistically, nothing. It's not possible. I cannot believe the title has gone away from him. I really, really can't, especially after that start to the season that he had. You know, even with a couple of mistakes here and there, it was still advantage Wehrlein, but these last few rounds, it's just been nothing. Nothing at all from Wehrlein, and I just can't believe it. It's really, really disappointing to see. Yeah, it's another few points for Porsche, but they'd have been wanting to have at least a title chance going into London at the XL Stadium. But yeah, it's just not happening now, is it? Big, big shame. So yeah, for Pascal Wehrlein, 5.5 I've scored him, and that's probably generous by a point or two at that, but you know, a little bit of sympathy goes my way to him for some reason this weekend. Yeah, it's just I can't believe it. I just cannot believe he's gone into that final race not even in title contention mathematically. It just blows my mind, and I'm sure it blows everyone's mind after we're talking about it at the start of the season, thinking it's just going to be the Jake Dennis and Pascal Wehrlein show. I mean, it came undone for Jake Dennis at one point, but he came back, didn't he? Pascal Wehrlein hasn't. So yeah, 5.5 to him. Then we come to Stoffel Vandoorne, securing 8th place after an 18th place start. So he gained 10 places. Now everyone's saying, oh wow, he's done a great job there, hasn't he? And in some respects, yes he has. He has done a great job to secure points after not doing very well in qualifying. But he should be doing better in qualifying. You know, this is the end game, I'm afraid. You've got to be thinking, well, yeah, you've scored points, but yeah, Vandoorne this season has been very hit and miss, hasn't it? It must be said. It's been a hit and miss season, I'm afraid, for Vandoorne, and it's a shame to say and see that, but that's what's happened. The first few races, himself and Jev were struggling, which is fair enough, and then Jev's got to grips with the car. Vandoorne just really hasn't, and here he has, seemingly getting to grips with the car, gaining 10 places, but he put himself so far out of position, he wasn't able to get a great result out of it, just a handful of points. He needs more than that. So for Stoffel Vandoorne this weekend, I have commended him somewhat for gaining places and scoring points, but it's not going to be a massive score. I'm scoring him 6.5. 6.5 to Stoffel Vandoorne, and I think that's fair. I'm commending him for the charge that he made through the field, but I'm knocking him points off because he should have been higher up to start with. So there you go. 6.5 to Vandoorne. Next up in 9th place we come to Dan Tinctum in the Neo 333. Great job by Dan this weekend. I think he recovered himself well from yesterday's race. I didn't mean this weekend, I meant this race in particular. Good race by Dan this race, not this weekend. Of course, recovered himself from yesterday's antics where he could have had a massive haul of points there. He could have been a top 5 finisher had he not been lazily taken off his wing. That was a shame to see. But yeah, this weekend, you know, he's had a good run there. Picks up a couple of points for Neo. Good recovery based on his race yesterday. Neo are now ahead of Mahindra in the standings. So what Sergio Sette Camara did yesterday and Tinctum has been able to do today is very much commendable, and those 4 points have been crucial to leapfrog Mahindra by a point. I can't really expect that to change in London unless something dramatic happens, but Di Grassi had a couple of good races here and there, hasn't he, where he's picked up some points. Mary, I don't really expect him to, so it's still going to be very much closely fought for that 9th place in the Constructors between Mahindra and Neo. But I do think Neo have got the slight edge now, especially because they're leading. Let's wait and see. But yeah, just 1 point between those. So that's going to be an interesting battle going into London. We're going to be focusing on the title and the team's championship overall. But there's a lot of places that can switch around lower down the field as well. So keep a look out for them. Neo, Mahindra, very, very close. I do expect it to be advantage Neo now. But you never know, do you? It's Formula E. But for Dan Tinctum, I'm going to award him 8 points. 8 points to Dan Tinctum. Yeah, I was a little bit maybe overly harsh with Sette Camara in yesterday's race for securing the same finish, but there were that many cars retired in yesterday's race and he only just scraped points, whereas here, a lot more cars in the race. I don't think he's finished behind any cars that he should have been finishing ahead of as well, so that's why I think the score is fair. So yeah, 8-2, Dan Tinctum. Next up, we come to Nico Muller securing the final points-paying position in the Abt Cooper. What a fantastic weekend Nico Muller has had, securing points in both races in Rome. Absolutely fantastic effort. Must be commended for him for that. He's done a great, great job this weekend. Really, really has. He scored 6th place, the best finish of the season for Abt in yesterday's race. France was unfortunate to get caught up in that. And then in this race, it's been a point finish again for Nico Muller. France, mechanical issues, which was again a big shame for France, but Muller has made up for his teammates' demises that weren't his fault, and Nico Muller thoroughly deserving of 9 points. 9 points to Nico Muller. I gave him 10 for a top 6 finish. I can't give him 10 for a top 10, but I can give him 9. So 9 points to Nico Muller. What a fantastic few races it's been for Abt. They've always been picking up an odd point here and there now. It's been great to see. I hope they can build on this going forward into next season. And yeah, so hopefully the Mahindra powertrain can be a lot better, not just for them, but for Mahindra as well, of course, going into next season. But for now, 9 points to Nico Muller. Just outside the points we come to Jake Hughes in the McLaren, finishing in 11th place. What a shame for Jake this weekend. He had his silly incident in qualifying yesterday that meant he couldn't even start the race. And then in today's race, he'd done well enough in qualifying, done a good job, but got caught up in the shenanigans that happened as a result of the two title protagonists taking each other out. It was a big concertina effect. Everyone was battling and bunching up and tagging each other, and John-Eric Verne slammed into the back of Jake Hughes, which caused him damage. And he had to box because he hit the car ahead, needed a new nose. Both McLarens in the pits at once at that stage. It did take him to the back of the grid, but at least with the safety car period, was able to bunch himself back onto the field and just missed out on a points-paying position there. So a great race by Jake, damage limitation. Shame he wasn't inside the top 10 this race, and I'm going to award him 7 points for that effort. A good effort there. Wasn't his fault, he was outside the points and made a good charge through the field, just missing out. 7 points to Jake Hughes. Finishing in 12th place, we come to Antonio Felix da Costa. I don't really know what could be said for this one. I don't know what happened to him, to be honest. I think he just really lacked pace this race. It was a very much an off weekend for him. Yeah, shame really to see and say. He was the one that was caught up in yesterday's accident as well. So, you know, you don't really know how well these cars are going to run, do you, to be honest, after a complete rebuild. Antonio Felix da Costa, 12th place, not a great result. And I'm going to award him 4.5 for that. 4.5 to Antonio Felix da Costa. Yeah, just a bit of a shame. Less than average, but don't want to overly criticise him. He's had a rough weekend this weekend, and I hope he comes back stronger in London. But for now, it's 4.5 to da Costa. Finishing in an unlucky 13th place, it is René Rast in the other McLaren. As mentioned, he was another victim of the bunching up of the pack after the incident happened ahead. And he had to pit for a wing as well. He got arse-ended by a car as well. It was just a big mess. McLaren's heavily losing out as a result. And here he is finishing in an unlucky 13th, which really sums up his weekend, to be honest. Big shame. And yeah, for René Rast, I've awarded him 5.5. Just slightly above average, really. A little bit harsh, maybe by half a point, maybe up to a full point. But nonetheless, you know, Rene Rast this weekend, he had problems in the first race that weren't his fault. He's had a problem and an issue in this race that wasn't his fault. Tried to come through the field, just didn't quite do a good enough a job as Jake, but in the end it was still no points for McLaren, which is a huge, huge shame. 5.5 to Rene Rast. Next up, if you thought it was unlucky for Rene Rast, it is Nick Cassidy finishing in 14th place. Oh, I don't even know what to say. Cassidy had done everything right. He really has done a fantastic job this weekend. And to see him down here in 14th place is just heartbreaking. It really is. He was trying to look round the outside of Jake Dennis. Mitch Evans was behind. Mitch locked his rear brakes up, was coming in, so it was those two cars there. That was Dennis. That was Cassidy. And then you had Mitch Evans behind. He locked his brakes, went sliding, caught the back of Jake Dennis just as he was going around the corner, hit the back of Cassidy, and the wheels touched at the wrong time. Evans went over the top of Nick Cassidy. Cassidy had to go down the escape road. Mitch Evans slammed it into the wall. It caused a bunching up effect from the cars behind, checking up, trying to see where these cars were going to end up. Mitch Evans obviously retired from the race. We'll come to him in a moment. But Nick Cassidy managed to continue with a heavily damaged car. He had a fair old whack in the rear. He had no camera or pod left on the top of the car. That was all broken and smashed to bits and dangling off. And then bunched up to the back of the pack. Got as high as 11th at one stage, but hadn't taken any attack modes. And then when he took the attack modes, tumbled down to as low as 16th at one stage. Only recovered to 14th. Huge, huge shame. 24 points behind. Jake Dennis now is going to be a huge haul of points to try and overcome in London. But if anyone can do it, it's going to be Nick Cassidy, isn't it? Because he's had a fantastic season, and I just think it's so unlucky that this incident is the one that could cost him the title. He really does deserve it. But there we go. So Nick Cassidy, I've awarded him 7.5. 7.5 to Nick. Yeah. Such a huge, huge shame to see him out this way, outside the points, and losing out on a hefty sum of points in the title championship as well. But yeah, let's see what happens in London. Nick, I'm rooting for you, but for now, it's 7.5. Then we come to Jean-Eric Vergne. As mentioned, he was the one that checked up and got involved in the incident that was caused by the incident ahead, slamming into the back of one of the McLarens. Anyway, I can't remember if it was Rene Rast or Jake Hughes, but nonetheless, both McLarens were a victim of what happened there. Yeah, I mean, it was just so unlucky, wasn't it, for Jev, really, to be honest with you, but he just checked up and slammed into the back of the car. And then where it all went really wrong for Jev was the fact that he got no front wing and didn't decide to box, and then he carried around at the safety car, and then when the safety car came in, then he decided to box. Yeah, very, very bizarre there. I'm not sure why they did that. That was really strange. But for Jean-Eric Vergne, of course, taking a McLaren outside of the points paying positions, taking himself out, and then doing a really weird pit stop strategy of pitting when it wasn't when the track was under green flag. It's going to be 3.5 to him for that. 3.5 to Jean-Eric Vergne. Yeah, below average race, really. Huge shame. And that's that. 3.5 to Jean-Eric Vergne. Then we come to Sasha Fenestraz, who had electrical problems in that car, unfortunately. No fault of his own whatsoever. He was unable to qualify in that race because of problems with the car. And then in the race itself, he was at the back, he was struggling to make progress anyway, made 2 pit stops in the race, and then eventually retired. So, yeah, big shame to Sasha this race. In fact, he might have crossed the line, I can't quite remember, but nonetheless, I have awarded him a middle of the road 5. Nothing else I can do with that, even if he did cross the line, I can't sing his praises. There were nothing we saw of him this race, no fault of his own either. Problems with the car, issues with the car means that he was, you know, pretty much in the pits, out the pits, starting at the back. Very unfortunate for Sasha. So middle of the road 5 to him. Then we come to Sergio Sette Camara. Oh, very unfortunate, to be honest with you. He's just down here again, isn't he? It's just a season of nothing, really. Like I said, the points yesterday was his first since India, I think, and then here we are, not scoring any once again, finishing down here in a lowly 16th position. Yeah, what can you do, really? What can you do? So I've just awarded him 4 points, below average. because that's what it is. A below average performance once again. Huge shame, but as mentioned, he did the job yesterday, I guess, although I was expecting more from him. But there you go. It's 4 points to Sergio Sette Camara. Next up is Andre Lotterer, disqualified on the cruel corner anyway, and here he is down here in the ridiculously low 17th position finish. I just don't know what to do anymore. It's just another lacklustre effort, isn't it? Did he have to pit at one point in the race? I think he did. Either way, I don't really care. It's just been a poor performance. Disqualified anyway on the cruel corner, and really doesn't need a Formula E seat next season, does he? I can't see anyone wanting him, to be honest with you. It's been a poor season. Disqualified anyway, and another poor race for Andre Lotterer. Next up is Robin Freins. He is a retirement, unfortunately. I can't remember if Sasha Fenestraz was. I don't think he was. I think he kept going but was outside the points anyway. But Robin Freins most certainly was a retirement, sadly. Problems with the car, issues with the car, and had to retire. That's life, isn't it? That's racing. Miller 05 to Robin Freins. Great to see Muller score some good points for App this weekend. Freins has just been so unlucky this weekend. I hope his form turns around in London. I hope they get a good qualifying position. I hope Freins can score a few more points to end his season off with. He does deserve it, doesn't he? He's had a tough season as Robin. But yeah, for now, Miller 05 to Robin Freins. Next up is Roberto Meri in the Mahindra, another retirement of the race. The Mahindras both doubly retiring. We're going to come to the Degrassi just in a second. And yeah, nothing really can be done for Meri. Out of the race, huge shame. They both came into the pits together, the Mahindras, so I'm not sure what really went wrong there. That was a huge disappointment, though. It's a 4.5 to Roberto Meri. Out of 5, that's all I score the retirements, a maximum of 5 points. I think 4.5 is fair, really. He was running behind his teammate before the retirement, and that was that. So yeah, 4.5 to Roberto Meri. And as mentioned, finishing behind Roberto Meri on this list, of course, it is Lucas Di Grassi, but as already mentioned, he's another retirement. Nothing can be done for that. It's a maximum of 5 points that I can score a retirement for Di Grassi. He's a bit like Freins this weekend, unlucky to get caught up in the incident in race 1, unlucky to have the car issues in race 2. He may as well have not bothered turning up. It would have saved Mahindra a hell of a lot of money, and would have saved Di Grassi a hell of a lot of heartache, it must be said. Yeah, huge shame, huge disappointment, a ridiculously bad season for Mahindra this season. Just can't get their powertrain to work as efficiently, as effectively, can't even be fast at times. Just a huge disappointment. Miller 05 to Di Grassi. And then last, but by no means least on this list, we do come to Mitch Evans, who was squarely and solely to blame for the incident that took out Nick Cassidy. Took himself out of title contention, took Nick Cassidy out of title contention. I believe Evans is mathematically possible to still win the title, but I think he's 45 points behind Jake Dennis now. As mentioned earlier, 58 points available in the races. He needs pole win, fastest lap, Jake Dennis to score nothing. Cassidy to score nothing because he's 20 behind him as well, let's not forget that. So yeah, it's a massively tall order now. I think it's slightly impossible for Nick Cassidy, but for Mitch Evans it is really impossible. I wouldn't go to the bookies and put a £5 on it, let's put it that way. Mitch Evans, though, only has himself to blame for that incident of taking himself outside of title contention, which is a huge disappointment to both himself and to Nick Cassidy. And yeah, I can't score him anything. It's a 0. It has to be a 0 to Mitch Evans for that. That's the first big error we've seen of Mitch this season. He's been unlucky in previous races, getting taken out by his teammate, of course, twice. But this time was firmly on him, and he really did cost himself and Cassidy a shot at the title. 0 to Mitch Evans. So everything, guys, those were the runners and riders of the Rome E-Prix from Italy, of course. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down below. Did I score any drivers too high? Any too low? The updated point standings is on the screen now for you to take a look at with the points I have just awarded. See that title fight at the top getting ever closer, and funnily enough it's between Jake Dennis and Nick Cassidy. But who'd have thought that, eh? Who'd have thought that? But both of them have had a great season so far. So getting very close at the top. As mentioned, the mid-pack is still just as mental, isn't it? See where your favourite driver is and let me know if you can see him going up or going down based on London E-Prix performances. Let's have a look and see. I am very much excited for the season finale at London. I cannot wait to see how it all unfolds, but it is very much advantage Jake Dennis, isn't it? A massive thanks as always go out to Dan of Dan Bartlett, formerly Mushy Gaming, for providing me with this scoreboard that you see on your screen. Without him, this series would be more pointless than he already is, and he does a fantastic job. So thank you so much, buddy, for everything that you do. It is really appreciated. So thank you so much for watching, guys. You'll see me in a couple of weeks' time for the London E-Prix round 1 and round 2. Just to let you know, there will be a slight delay on those videos because I will be at Kendal Calling Festival from Thursday to Monday, the weekend of the Formula E race. So the race will be happening, of course, on Saturday and Sunday. I'm not coming home until Monday afternoon/evening. So I'll probably be watching all the racing, including Formula 1, on the Tuesday. I'm going to try and get the Formula 1 Crawl Room out for the Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday will be round 1 and round 2 of the Formula E-Prix finale. So we will crown a champion, I promise we will, but it will just be a few days delayed, sadly. I can't help it when a festival is, and I cannot wait for Kendal Calling. It's going to piss it down. I'm going to get so soggy and soaked, but I'll be with a load of mates in a field, piss wet through, listening to great tunes, and I can't wait for that. So yeah, apologies for the delay on that, but at least I can give you advance notice. So that's what I'm aiming for, and I will try my very best to do it. So Thursday, 5 p.m. The following week from, of course, the races itself. So Saturday will translate into Thursday, and the Sunday race will translate into the Friday at 5 p.m. I look forward to seeing you all then anyway, guys. Take care until then, and I'll see you all soon. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and as always, much love.